Hi, Amy Elizabeth, somatic and intuitive healer here with Kate. And
Hello.
And we're back to chat about the upcoming dark moon solar eclipse in Libra.
Ooh.
Excited?
Yes, very excited. Tell me more about it.
Eclipses, first, one of my teachers always says, eclipses conceal, they don't reveal.
Okay. What do they conceal or reveal?
Oftentimes they conceal our issues. As a somatic and intuitive healer, as a shaman, I am always playing with what is beneath the surface, what's in our unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And eclipses are about our unconscious. And oftentimes you don't need to look very hard for what's going on.
Right.
And this particular eclipse, which is happening on Saturday the 14th, is both the start, the closing moon of a cycle and the opening moon of a cycle.
Okay.
And then it is also the halfway point of a cycle.
It's a cycle in a cycle?
It's a cycle within a cycle within a cycle.
Okay. So there's some significance to that, probably.
Yes.
Okay.
Oftentimes when you're working out in the world,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to hear people talk about a moon cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to talk about it in like the 28-day sense, which, yes, the moon cycles from dark, which we often hear called new moons. I call them dark moons.
Mm-hmm.
As a shaman, that's when the moon is at its dark point, and that's when the dreaming is really potent.
Okay.
And since we're living in someone else's dream, this is a dark moon eclipse. This is a beautiful time for dreaming.
Okay.
It's a beautiful time for having a really, really good look at potentially, you can go back to October 6th, 2021.
Okay. That's quite a ways.
Get out your journals.
Okay.
Some people actually do it with their photo rolls. People who take a lot of pictures,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this day and age of the Instagrammers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a person that takes a lot of pictures, go back. What were you doing around October 6th in 2021?
Mm-hmm.
And find out, because that was the opening moon of this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the moon that opened the energy.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go back and you can look, well, what was I doing? What was I up to? What was I journaling about?
Right.
What were the struggles? What were the conflicts? What were my dreams at the time? What was I dreaming about?
Because those things will recur.
Yes.
Okay.
And depending on, people talk about the new moon a lot, the dark moon, as a time of seed planting.
Mm-hmm. And
we miss the fact that before you can plant, you need to release, you need to make space. So up until the time when this moon peaks, which happens at 12:54 p.m. Central Time, adjust for your time zones, on the 14th,
mm-hmm.
we're in a state of releasing. The moon is getting smaller and smaller. She's letting things go.
Okay.
The moon is really plugged into people.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're looking at a presidential chart,
mm-hmm.
all the presidents of the United States have what are called inauguration charts.
Right.
And that is when they were born into their role as
mm-hmm.
president.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on where the moon is in that chart,
mm-hmm.
depends on that will dictate a presidency's emotional relatedness to the people of our country.
Interesting. Okay.
So the moon is the way we emotionally relate. It's the way we emotionally plug in.
Mm-hmm.
For us as individuals, it's about our emotional safety.
Okay.
Where do we feel safe?
Mm-hmm.
And in Libra, a moon in Libra is about how do we balance? We did Leo season, which is all heart, express. We did Virgo season, which is like, how do I analyze this?
Okay.
How do I figure this out?
Right.
And it's very heady. It's very perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
It's very detail oriented. It's also very practical.
Okay.
And the heart and the head, the heart isn't always practical.
Right. It wants what it wants.
It
doesn't always make sense, right?
It wants what it wants. It
Yeah.
doesn't always make sense. And emotions are messengers.
Okay.
And if we get too in our head, We miss the messages. And then Libra season comes in and says, hey, how do we balance this?
Right.
So these eclipses that happen in Libra, these moons that happen in Libra that started back in October 6th of 2021, have to do with the balancing of the head and the heart.
Okay.
So you can go back, you can journal back. You're going to look for things around October 6th, 2021. And then that was the opening moon of the cycle.
And when you say look for things, what could stand out? What are you looking for?
What are the themes? And
Okay.
if you're somebody who's into history, you look at what was going on in the socio-political world, what was going on with technology, what was going on with relationships, because Libra is a very relational sign. It's also the sign of, like, you're balancing I and thou.
Okay.
How do I want to balance out you? And how do I want to balance out me? And how do I bring both of us into this? Because the Libra is the sign of the scales.
Right.
It's not an animal. It's not a person. It's really the only zodiac sign that's an inanimate object.
Sorry, it's not cute. Everybody's got a little animal. That one's
or
not,
a person.
Yeah. So
because we've got Virgo, the priestess. Most people call her the Virgin. I go with priestess. So October 6th, and then the first quarter of that cycle happened April 16th of 2022.
Okay.
The halfway point of that cycle was September 25th, 2022. That was when we reached, like, hey, have you been working this thing?
And when you say working this thing, so what does that mean? The themes that are coming up and how you work them. What are we trying to do?
Are you being aware? Because we're in cycles.
Okay.
Like, this is a medicine walk. From a shamanic standpoint, we are in a medicine walk, and we are coming to the end of this turning of the wheel.
Okay.
And so whatever was really alive, like thinking back, 2021. Okay, so 2021, we were a year and a half into the pandemic, because we here, at least in Minnesota, closed down in March of 2020. So we were a year and a half into living in this new way. Some schools here were back in session in person. A lot of them were not.
Yeah, I think even at that time it was an option, right? So parents got to decide to keep the kids home or let them go.
With Pluto in Capricorn, it was about really examining where we hand out our authority. And Pluto's back in Capricorn.
Okay.
And Pluto also just stationed direct on the 10th, which was it's the 12th today.
Yeah.
So it was Tuesday. And Pluto stationing direct is like the turning of the Titanic.
Okay.
It is not something that happens quickly. And Pluto stationed direct at 27 degrees. So there's also this whole debate of where are we at in our nation's Pluto return, where we're dealing and examining with who is the authority over us.
Right.
Where do we give out our power? Do we give out our power to the company we work for because they're our paycheck? Do we give out our power to our dog because she's demanding a walk? Do we give away our power to our children by not having boundaries and keeping them safe?
Well, and I think there's some interesting, not struggles maybe, but changes of power in Congress. They're swapping up speakers and stuff. So there's a lot of that happening.
There's a lot of who is the authority here.
Right. And I think to that, we could also maybe talk about the Israeli-Hamas thing too. That's a piece of that too. So it's interesting how it all kind of across the globe is in upheaval a little bit.
Yeah. Johannes Kepler spoke about the music of the spheres. And this was back in the 1500s. Yeah. He had already plugged into the fact that the points of light we were looking at in the cosmos had a vibration and a frequency. I stumbled across that article, what was it, last week, that scientists have finally felt like they've proven that the Earth is a sentient living being, to which I was ranting about, like, can science be any more slow?
No one came up with that idea. Certainly no native cultures around the world have ever.
Like, that is not, shamanism is, we've got proof that it's at least 30,000 years old. And we are well aware of the fact that it's exponentially older than that, and that life has she is alive.
Sure.
She has a consciousness. She has a vibration of her own.
Mm-hmm.
So of course everything else has a vibration.
Right.
And what that vibration sings at and how it impacts us. And the moon is one of our biggest vibratory influences.
Okay.
It moves water on this planet.
Yeah, that's pretty big deal on a water planet. So
I feel like anybody who's got there's no such thing, like astrology is not a thing, because of course astronomy is the study of the movements and the physicality. Mm-hmm. And astrology is the study of how those movements affect us.
Right.
So knowing that the moon affects the water based on its movements,
and the water inside us,
yes, is the basis. Prior to Christianity, 2000, well, even 1600 years ago is more accurate, since the Christianity model as we know it was established in the 4th century. Astrology and astronomy were one science, because you can't really separate it out. You can't separate the movement from the meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, at some point you could. At some point they did. So.
And then it was decided that they were going to try to separate that out. And if we're following the moon's movements and we're seeing the change that is created, we know at this point, public transportation has extra staffing on full moons.
Okay.
Emergency rooms.
They do.
Extra staffing on full moons.
Right.
Because our blood boils. You hear statements like that. It's because the moon is calling to the water in us. Mm-hmm. It's rising it up. And water shamanically is associated with emotion, which is why you see a height. You see it. It's visually lit up. Because for as much as we love a full moon, energetically, it's an opposition. Mm-hmm. The moon is on one side of the room. The sun is on the other side of the room. And they don't want anything to do with each other. It's the goths and the cool kids in the cafeteria in high school who are aware of each other, but really want to pretend the other one isn't in the room.
Sure.
So when we're dealing with these moon cycles and what's coming up, especially with a Libra moon, each moon has a different energy. Mm-hmm. If this was an Aries moon, Aries is about the self.
Okay.
Libra is about the balance of thou and I. So this is a relational moon. What's going on with the relationships in your life? Mm-hmm. And what are the cycles that you're seeing? Because of course I also said this is a midway moon, because that September 25th, 22 dark moon was also the start of a cycle.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
Because it's cycle
and a cycle and a cycle.
Okay. Yep. And so this moon is closing a cycle that started back in October of 2021. Okay. It's also this midway point of the September 2022 cycle. And it is an initiatory point. And so the way you can look at this is, well, how have my relationships evolved? Okay. And it's not just how our relationships have evolved. How have we as individuals evolved in our relationships? Because as within, so without, right. As above, so below. So the authority struggles we're seeing and the challenges we're seeing globally are a reflection of our internal struggles for who is the boss of me. Right. It's the old man who sits in the house and yells, "You're not the boss of me," when somebody's trying to
help them,
care for them, take care of them. Well, I'm not trying to be the boss of you. I'm trying to meet you. And so this moon on Saturday is conjunct our self node, our collective self node.
Okay. And what does that mean?
Well, the self node is our core wounds. Okay. Where is our wound? Where is the thing that triggers us to behave in ways that are distorted and messy. And once we clean that up, under the mess is our gifts.
Yes.
And it's our gifts that we've developed in this life. It's our gifts that we came in with as children. Did you come in with an artistic gift that has been buried and buried and buried because the relationships in your life that you've chosen have said no? You know, I think about growing up and being told like there were two things I could do as a woman that would support me and make sure that I was okay. And that was go to school and get a degree in science with a minor in Spanish and marry a man.
Okay.
Those were the two things.
Those are good things. Good, strong.
I could do to make sure that as somebody in a female body, I was taken care of. So in the pursuit of that, like how did that affect my relationships? What were the messages we received from the one-on-one relationships in our lives? Parents, friends, siblings, teachers. You know, I was told in 8th grade that I should never do anything that involves numbers. I was in finance for years.
I was told not to do anything athletic, and yet I run and do all kinds of things.
You're a total competitor. So that this South Node is an opportunity to shed the things that keep us from true intimacy. And I hear people talk about intimacy as if it's about only physical contact. Intimacy is about genitals. Oh, no.
How far out does it go? Like friendship or like coworkers?
Coworkers.
Okay.
Because there are people you have one-on-one. Even the people we interact with in stores. The checkout person. Okay. At the grocery store, the pharmacist getting you your prescription, your professors, your teachers, your coaches, anybody we interact with one-on-one can leave an impression on us. It's that idea that you don't know what somebody else is in, and offering them kindness is always the most powerful thing we can do. Not knowing what they're in, not knowing what they're struggling with. And a South Node eclipse is a struggle. We're watching the struggles.
Well, and is that just because it's a South Node eclipse, or is it because you got an eclipse on eclipse and eclipse? Does that heighten it too?
Yes, we're in eclipse season.
Okay.
And I think this is just
this Russian doll eclipse situation, just really, taking it to the next level.
Yes.
Okay.
It's eclipse season. Eclipse season started like 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
And we will not see the resolution of this eclipse for another 2 years. So think October 21st, 2025.
Wow. Okay.
Is when the cycle that is initiated with Saturday's moon will see some resolution.
Okay.
And we always have the chance to move it at the speed at which we move. We have this cultural idea that we're afraid of change. That's something we've been taught.
Right. Because change happens every day, all the time. So
yes, okay. we are sitting in our dining room right now. We're looking out at the trees that have started to change. The bush in our neighbor's yard that is changing color. Change is actually really super normal. Yeah. It's a toxic idea that we've been handed, that change is something we should be scared of. And that plugs right back into the authority piece. When we're not taking the authority in our life because we're making survival level decisions, of course change is going to be scary because it's on someone else's authority. It's not on our authority. So this is conjunct the South Node. It's also sandwiched by Mercury.
Okay. What does he bring to the game?
Communication.
Every time we go through this, we have trouble at work.
Well, but that's retrogrades.
Oh, okay. Okay. This isn't a retrograde.
This isn't a retrograde.
Okay,
Mercury finished his third retrograde.
Okay. So we're done with that at least.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mercury is saying, what are the old ways that you communicate in relationship or don't communicate that are damaging your systems?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because Saturn is also involved in this, hence the systems piece of it. So we've got the eclipse itself is happening at 21 degrees Libra for those of you that want to look at your charts. The South Node's at 24, Mercury's at 17, so they're making this little sandwich of the moon and the sun.
Okay.
And dark moons are so powerful because they're the union, they're divine union of the masculine and feminine.
Okay.
In Hellenistic astrology, the sun is a masculine and the moon is a feminine. Mm-hmm. So when you have a dark moon, it's this union point. And the union point in Libra is sandwiched by our old ways of communicating in relationship. Clearly. And then Black Moon Lilith and our friend Venus have both moved into Virgo. And Venus is further out. Venus went exactly opposite Saturn back on Tuesday, but she's still within this orb space. So Venus is our self-worth. She's our relationships. She our self-worth in relationship. Mm-hmm. She's our love of beauty. You know, we lit a candle because we're doing sacred stuff. Beauty. She's our desire to make things beautiful. She's our desire to make things cozy. Mm-hmm. Saturn is cold. He is structure. So they were opposing each other with Virgo in the sign, with Venus entering Virgo, mm-hmm. conjunct Black Moon Lilith, which is our hidden carnal desires. Back to relationship. Are you in a relationship? Are you in a place where you can talk about your dark, dirty, like, ooh, I want to do that thing. Can we try that thing? And Saturn is about the ways in which we restrict ourselves. Okay. And with Venus entering Virgo and Saturn in Pisces, they're both in their detriments.
So no, you can't try that thing. Or it'll be harder.
They struggle. They're
Right.
going to struggle. This is a little bit, they're on the struggle bus. Okay. They're sitting at opposite ends of the struggle bus. And Black Moon Lilith and Venus are like in priestessing mode. Okay. But Venus in Virgo, she's in her fall. She's in her detriment. She's hypercritical. So any cycles of criticism that you see going on, nip that shit in the bud. Like, that is not good for that Libra I thou. Okay. And Saturn is there in Pisces, and Saturn's a builder. He's also retrograde. So he's asking us to review our boundaries. Okay. Pisces is a place that we talk about it a lot as lacking boundaries. Mm-hmm. It's the boundlessness. It's water vapor.
It's hard to put a boundary on, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's that Saturn really struggles in a place where there's no boundaries because Saturn is about our boundaries. Okay. And having a review of, well, are my boundaries about keeping people out? Mm-hmm. Having grown up on a ranch with a lot of fences and cattle, boundaries were about keeping the animals in. That's what boundaries were. Those fences were about keeping in. Mm-hmm. So can you hold yourself in? That's actually a healthy boundary. And it's not about suppressing. Okay. It's not about not expressing. Mm-hmm. It is about like, oh, I see this thing coming up at me and that's not how I want to be in the world. Okay. I see that this thing is pushing against my edges and it's making me angry. Okay, if I'm angry because something is pushing against my edges, oftentimes when our boundaries are violated, it sparks anger. Okay. Because we feel violated. Yeah. So can you put the pieces together? And Mars is moved into Scorpio as of the 11th. So, Venus is moving into her detriment, and Saturn is in his detriment. Mars, which was in Libra and in his detriment, unable to assert himself, has moved into Scorpio.
I think he's more comfortable there, right?
Yeah, it's someplace where he has rulership.
Yeah.
So he's back to feeling assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a wide square now between Mars and Pluto.
Okay.
Which we had spoken about earlier. You had asked earlier this week about if there was an astrological tie into what's going on with Hamas and Israel. And it began at the really into the peak energy of Mars square Pluto.
And Mars is war.
So is Pluto.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Mars and Pluto are both gods of war.
Okay. And
they're both lovers. Mars was a lover archetype before he was assigned a god of war.
Okay.
And Pluto is a higher vibratory level. He can be a cleaner vibratory level.
Mm-hmm.
Pluto is also about the land.
Okay. Well, that's a big piece of this too. So
Pluto's about the land. He's about deeply rooted traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. He's in Capricorn. Mm-hmm. He's who has authority over the deeply rooted traditions, the deeply rooted land. And if Pluto and Mars are fighting, Mars may win a battle. Pluto will always win the war.
Okay.
That deeply rooted piece of Pluto is stamina that Mars doesn't have.
Okay.
Because Mars is passion and action and go and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. You've watched me, Mars, all over the place. Mars moves, and there's a thing that just I gotta move with it because I am very Mars ruled.
Okay.
It's why I am loudish. It's why my passion comes out as
big passion.
Big. And with Mars shifting into Scorpio, that's also going to put him trying our friend Saturn in Pisces. So Mars has moved into a sign of rulership. Saturn is still in his detriment, but they're in a supportive place. And Scorpio is frozen water. Where are you not blah in your emotions?
Yeah.
And it's not that you want to verbally vomit them, but they're messengers. Where are you not listening to them?
Okay.
Where are you not picking up on what's going on? So there's a lot of movement happening. We're in a closing cycle point. We're in a mid-cycle point, and we're in an opening cycle point.
Okay.
Because we are, as humans, consistently on a medicine walk.
And what does that mean? I know we've talked about that a little bit before, but I don't know that everybody knows what a medicine walk is.
So coming from a shamanic tradition, a medicine walk is a healing practice where, for me, it's the conscious, a medicine walk can be a day.
Okay.
It can be a month. It can be a 2-year moon cycle. It can be a year long from birthday to birthday. It is moving through, here is my wounding.
Okay.
Here is what I'm going to release about this. Here is where I'm going to call and ask for help. And I mean, phone a friend or ask divinity for help, for support, ask the ancestors. And then it's about ascending that problem.
Okay.
It's ascending that challenge. And it doesn't mean you're not ever going to come up against that again.
Right.
Because it's a spiral. We're walking a spiral path. And when we're working that medicine walk, that spiral moves in a 360-degree manner where we're getting deeper. We're moving more into Pluto, deeply rootedness. We're ascending, we're moving up. So we have a higher view. We have a view of the eagle or the condor where we can see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture that we can see is that life isn't happening to us, it's happening for us.
Yeah.
And it's getting wider. we're expanding our worldview,
Mm-hmm.
and we're more able to see that I am you and you am I.
Right.
And what I do onto you, the restrictions I put onto you
Mm-hmm.
are the restrictions I internally feel.
Right.
I'm going to tell you you don't have control of your body because I don't feel in control.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to try to grasp control outside of me in hopes that it will help me feel more in control of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So anywhere we see people trying to limit or control things outside of them,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they don't feel in control of themselves. And they are functioning from a distorted, if I can manage all this shit outside of me,
Right.
then clearly I'll be okay.
If only it were that easy, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we're all medicine walking, and back to the Mars, Pluto, Hamas, Israel piece. What's being called for is deep transformation, because that's what Pluto holds, and that's what eclipses can offer. So thanks for joining us today. Be sure to click subscribe, share us with your friends, reach out if you have questions. I'll put ways to contact me in the show notes, and sending you great, big, huge, fierce love. Happy eclipse season.